I don't know how effective this is going to be. We hope it's going to be effective, but we're going to find out. We are realizing that we need to relearn some of the most basic advice for beginning writers. And we are finding internal conflict to actually following that advice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about 4 months ago or so that we decided we need to start actually writing. If we want to be able to write well, we need to be willing to write poorly first and go through that process of exercising our writing skills. And when it started out, I think we were writing like one scene every week. And then we realized, well, we actually want each other's feedback on our scenes. So we'll write 1 week and then we'll give feedback the next. And then that process just got drawn out more and more. And now it has been like 2 months since we've actually written anything.
And there were a lot of reasons for that, even though we promised here on this channel
Yes.
that we were going to do this.
Yes, we did.
But life, I think we mentioned in another video that life got in the way. I've had some projects around the house that really needed to be addressed. And the exercise of writing, making the time to get in the zone to write an entire scene, it just didn't feel like the best use of time. And then the exercises that we were going through, some of them didn't feel like they were going to be helping us. Sometimes it was writing in the second person. Well, our novel is not a second person writing, or it's not a second person novel. Or what were some of the others?
There was one that was like using as many of the different senses as possible, and just writing everything that your character senses. There was one that was like slow motion writing, where you're supposed to write in 2 pages or so a scene that takes 10 seconds or less. So just really looking into all that's going on in that scene.
Those things can be helpful.
Yes.
It's good to practice and develop the discipline to learn to express with the senses. That's a good discipline, but focusing on it felt like it was getting in the way of what we thought we were trying to accomplish during that.
And so we're coming at this a different way this time. Instead of going through pre-planned writing exercises that we found from somewhere, we're going to look at our scene list of all the scenes that we have in our book, in our plot so far, and we're just going to pick one of them and write that scene.
And even with that, with a strategy that we can agree with, in our discussion, we're also finding some internal mental hurdles, even trying to implement that decision. Like, what is our goal? How often do we want to commit to writing? How much time can we commit to this? And then also, since we still have plot holes, we have things that we know that aren't quite figured out, there's a sense in which I'm going to write a scene, but knowing that it may not survive. I mean, that was one of the things that we didn't like about the artificial exercises. I know this isn't going to survive. And some of that still, we feel, that feeling still gets in the way sometimes.
And we are recognizing that we need to practice holding our writing loosely. There are going to be times, no matter how much planning we put into something, things are going to need to get cut. And we need to be ready to do that when the time comes. And so practicing now with things that we're even more sure are going to get cut, I think is a good way of starting to do that. And then, like you mentioned, there's all these plot holes. And I think writing in and around the plot holes, even though it's hard because you don't really know where you're trying to go with that, just exploring the plot hole, exploring what goes on around it, can help us brainstorm in a more creative way and find potential solutions to those problems.
I was having a conversation with a family friend of ours. The mother and daughter are co-authoring some fiction books there. And she was encouraging me, just write. You'll figure out your characters as you're writing. I think she said she was on the 10th draft of their novel, because as they're writing, they would learn things, they would discover things about their characters and then come back. And even in that, I felt resistance to doing that, because so many of our plot holes are not, I haven't figured out the character, but a lot of our plot holes tend to be around, we have some events that we know need to occur in the world, and we haven't figured out the so that connects one event to the other, from how nature would, or how the world or politics or the environment would naturally bring one to the next. So that's kind of gotten in the way.
And I do think that getting into that writer's seat and just writing can help us get into the mind of or put ourselves into that world and see what would the natural consequences be of this event right here, and what would come of that. And maybe that will help us, maybe it'll help us see a thread that we didn't notice before, or help us figure out what about this event needs to change so that it will naturally lead to what we need to happen next.
I think in our conversation, it came out, if we write near the plot holes, then maybe what we discover as we're writing can illuminate into the plot holes so that we can see more of what's going on there.
Right. I don't know how effective this is going to be. We hope it's going to be effective, but we're going to find out. That's the challenge that we've been going through in trying to follow this writing advice. So our question for you today is, what resistance do you face when trying to make progress, specifically creative progress, and how do you overcome that resistance? Let us know in the comments, and we will see you next week.